Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very blustery day here at the Collider Video Studios. Thrilled you're joining us for a new episode of Movie Talk. On today's show, whole lot of sequels coming your way, and some of them are all the way back from the 1980s. We have maybe Clue, maybe RoboCop, Crocodile Dundee. What the hell is going on with that thing? We're going to talk about all that, plus the brand new Pacific Rim Uprising trailer that just dropped this morning. Joining me, I mean, you talk about panels, and then you have these cats. This is what a panel looks like. The 360-degree revolving Kristian Harloff joining us.
Hey, everybody. I hope you're doing good, because I know you're doing good. Yeah, I'm talking to you. I know you are.
Oh, an individual shout-out from Kristian. How nice of him. Perri Nemiroff is also joining us. Anybody you want to say hi to?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and say hi to Nana.
Yeah!
Because Nana's a big movie talk, but she was so happy. She was belling when we did that.
I like
word
it.
specifically.
That's my
From Mrs.
demographic. I
Maisel?
like making Nana Cavell, and I wore my Navy shirt just for you. Nana, also hi. P. Nemi, Jon Schnepp, who would you like to say good morning to?
Hey, I'd like to say hi to Buizel and Scramfombolus.
They're coming in later on today.
They're going to be
For
here
an
later.
interview.
I just want to say,
yeah.
hey, Scramfombolus, I got your email. I'm 100%.
Does he still go by Scramfombolus or just Scram?
Scram once in a while. Sometimes I call him Scram. It depends.
Scram.
He's cool
He gets-
about
yeah,
it.
he doesn't
So
mind
what's
that
up?
anymore. Right.
You know, at least I can say that they're separated by a couple people on the panel, so that makes it a little safer. What is on your shirt? What is the design
Blue
of
cheese.
of Boba Fett and Darth? It looks like they're doing a version of Paul McCartney's Band on the Run.
I hate when people who don't read comics don't get this, but I'll just school Mark Ellis. This is Batman and Robin. It's from one of the most famous poses of Batman and Robin. I'll see you in my corner over here.
Start asking you Super Bowl questions.
I know it
to
is like
emerge
asking
from
me.
your corner, a trailer that we're probably going to see a little snippet of during the Super Bowl next week. We got the full one this morning, and that is the new trailer for Pacific Rim Uprising. The movie stars such luminaries as John Boyega, Charlie Day, and Macuga wedding enthusiast Scott Eastwood. Jon Schnepp, we watched the trailer. It's awesome, in my opinion anyway, but you have your doubts about whether the movie's actually going to be successful. Talk to me.
I'm worried because the first film I thought was incredible and it was not successful. So I feel like even though there's a big group of people like myself who love Pacific Rim, I'm a little worried. I was definitely worried when I saw the first trailer. I thought the first trailer was just didn't do it for me. It felt like I was watching a kid's Saturday morning cartoon show. All the CG looked too quick and fast. This trailer, I loved the first minute and a half of it. The last like 15 seconds kind of lost me, but I mean, if it had the weight and gravity, all the robots and monsters, the Jaegers, the kaiju, they looked cool. The scenes looked really good. I think they were like, maybe we should go back and examine Guillermo del Toro's directing style because it feels like there's a couple of those big, weighty shots, that slow-mo kind of thing. I love John Boyega's character. I like the storyline that they've revealed. So after seeing this full trailer, I feel like I'm hoping that it connects with the people who loved Pacific Rim who didn't see it in the theater, and we get a bigger U.S. box office. I'm still on the fence, though.
Well, that's a real question. It's worldwide. I think this movie is going to be just fine. But as it opens here in the United States, it not being a big hit, like the first one made money, but not as well as people wanted, and certainly not as much as the people doing the budget for Guillermo del Toro's movie did. This one is directed by Stephen Knight. Perri, your thoughts on the trailer, and do you think that it is going to be a hit?
I am also a pretty big Pacific Rim fan. I had a lot of fun with that movie, and you know, I know it's rough around the edges in some respects, and I also know about the connections to Transformers, how folks say, how do you like something like Pac Rim, and then look at, you know, wherever that image of the Jaeger that came up is, and not say that you see the similarities between that, and it was crossing my mind while I was watching this, much more so than when I watched the original Pacific Rim movie, and that's what makes me more nervous most of all, is you could just see certain shots where the Jaegers are starting to resemble the Transformers a little too much, but then you also have those like looking up at them 360 shots, and it just feels a little Michael Bay to me, and that's making me miss Guillermo del Toro's touch on it so much.
Kristian, you think Stephen Knight is making it a little too Transformers-y?
Well, I want actually to talk about that. Everything that Perri brought up as far as the concerns with if it seems like that type of Transformers, everything that you brought up is the cool stuff about what makes the Transformers good. Because the bad stuff with Transformers, if you say, how could you like this and not like Transformers? Because Transformers, the dialogue and the way that the characters are portrayed, that's the problem with the Transformers movies. Not the way they look. The way they look is the reason they got nominated for Oscars and stuff. They look phenomenal. Now, as far as Stephen Knight maybe taking a page out of that book, remember, he was part of the writing room for Transformers, so maybe he's taken some of his ideas and putting it into that. I loved this trailer. I loved it. And I thought, You know, I also like that John Boyega gets to be British again. That's cool. That's right.
Doesn't he sound like he could be Idris Elba's kid?
He does. That's what the second because the second he starts talking, I'm like, oh great, this makes a lot of sense to why this is perfect. I like that he's just kind of laying out by the pool and he's kind of like Maverick from Top Gun and he gets kind of pulled into it. I want to see how the other characters around him, because I think one of the problems, even though I don't mind Charlie Hunnam as an actor, I think he's hit or miss. I thought he was not really great in the first movie. This guy, John Boyega, is a great actor. He's a great actor. So to have him in the lead, even if you think Hunnam was okay, you can't compare the two of them as actors. It's like apples and oranges. So I like what they're doing. I agree with you 100%, Schnepp, that the way that they're developing the story, I don't give a crap if there's some similarities to the way it looks to Transformers, because maybe this is the better version of Transformers.
Yeah, I agree with that. I actually want it to look like Transformers because Transformers looks awesome. It's just the really, really bad sense of humor. Having Merlin crack stupid, jokes in the middle of that movie, and you have this great fight scene, then you have to keep going back to a sense of humor. Anthony Hopkins being weird. It just, that's what doesn't work about those movies.
Not to cut you off, you know what it is also? Is that because to go off that point, it's like in Transformers, the humor basically looks at the camera and goes, "This is a movie," as opposed to when there's comedy in there.
Oh, wow.
Right, like yucky, yuck. It's like that sucks me out of a movie. So that's kind of the point I thought you were making that I agree with 100%.
Well, no, anytime I'm talking, if you want to make my point for me, that's what I appreciate.
Good.
I am concerned about its box office, though. It's but because look, Tomb Raider comes out the week before this movie. A Wrinkle in Time comes out 2 weeks before this movie. After this movie comes out, the next week is Ready Player One. That's not not a huge landing spot.
It also doesn't help that the first Pacific Rim movie, I mean, how long were we talking about, it made money. It made money worldwide, but is that enough to justify, what was it, like $190 million production budget? So I don't think that this thing is going to come out and explode at the box office like, let's say, I don't know, something like a Jurassic World, where it's actually justifying spending that kind of money on a movie like this. But, I also don't know the production budget on this one, and that could come to light and wind up reflecting the fact that the first movie might have not made that much money, and then they actually scaled back, even though based on what I saw in this trailer, it doesn't look like they scaled back. That shot you brought up of Boyega by the pool is one of my favorite things, where it's got the Jaegers, the kaiju skeleton.
It was very JJ Force Awakens.
But I will say, with the look of the Jaegers in this movie, I think what's bothering me more so than them resembling Transformers too much is just how different they look from the Jaegers in the first film, in them being much more polished looking. I liked the texture of the Jaegers, that you could see, the battle scars, and they felt like you could reach out and touch them. And here they feel, I mean, really just like shiny and polished.
Well, I got to say, they look like Power Rangers to me. I mean, they're different colors. I mean, literally, when I was watching that trailer, I was like, damn, that's what they're doing. They got the 5-colored Power Rangers.
But there's a difference to what Perri said as far as in the first movie. Yeah, they were just going through all these wars. From what I got from the trailer, they haven't been in battle for a long time.
Yeah. There aren't even people training anymore. They have this secret group of people who are still training to be Jaegers. I got that too. To your point about the budget, this is way less than $190 million. They went into this knowing, they're like, look, we're not going to make $100 million at the box office, and we're not going to spend $100 million. So I don't know what the exact budget is, but my guess is roughly like $60 million. So I think if it makes $70 million opening weekend, it's fine, because it'll make that plus overseas, and then it's good.
Yeah, I think they can still spend a little bit of cheddar on this movie because they know how well it's going to do overseas. I think this thing's going to crush worldwide, and I think it's going to have a decent opening weekend haul, but I do get concerned about a product like Ready Player One coming out right behind it. This is the day and age we live in, is that there's always another blockbuster coming the next weekend. So Pacific Rim Uprising, hope you have a great opening weekend. I really enjoyed the trailer for what it's worth. So we have another cool story to talk about that is also a sequel, the long-awaited sequel for the Incredibles 2. It's finally coming out this summer, and we just got some new plot details as well, some new cast revealed. The plot details, it means that we're going to see Helen, who is voiced by Holly Hunter. She's the one in the spotlight now. She's the one that's going to work, leaving Bob, voiced by Craig T. Nelson, at home with Violet and Dash to navigate the day-to-day heroics of normal life. It's a tough transition for everyone, made tougher by the fact that the family is still unaware of baby Jack Jack's emerging superpowers. The Incredibles 2 is scheduled to hit theaters on June 15th. The new cast looks great. I'm a big fan of people like Bob Odenkirk, Sophia, Jonathan Banks is in this as well, Mike from Breaking Bad. And so we're doing the voices of new people. We also have a lot of returning cast, not just the heroes. We also have Frozone, who's going to have to team up with the Incredibles this time around. Where is my suit? Jon Schnepp, it's in the history of cinema, there's not a great track record for sequels that have been long awaited. Perry brought up Jurassic World, the last segment. That was one of the good ones because we were waiting for that one for a while. We finally got it, and I think it paid off, and certainly it did at the box office. Is Incredibles 2 going to follow that suit, or is it going to be more on the, dare I say, Dumb and Dumber Zootopia, not Zootopia, the Zoolander 2.
Yeah, Independence Day 2. There's a bunch of them.
Oh, boy.
Sorry, Perry. I mentioned it earlier, and I saw her wince.
Yeah.
Hey, look, you're connected to that somehow. So,
oh, God.
I think this is going to be a smash hit. I think they took their time for a reason. This is one of those things where they're like, we're not going to do it until we feel like we have the right way to do a sequel, because this is one of those films that they didn't rush into making a sequel. Like a lot of these other films, they're like, look, let's get that next one going. Let's go. 3, 4 years, 5 years tops. Now, how many years has it been? 11,
2003 is when, 2004 is when The Incredibles came out.
So it's, it's a long time. So, hey, we've all waited. So we're looking forward to it. I'm glad they got Brad Bird. It looks like they've assembled an incredible team. It looks like the story is going to be different enough from the first story, so we're not retreading things. And it's like it's obviously going to be growing a little bit, but we're not going into. We haven't moved 15 years in time. It's literally, I think, the next month in the storyline.
Is that why we're not as concerned, Christian? Because I don't hear anybody voicing any concerns about The Incredibles 2. We waited too long to make this movie. Maybe it's because it's animated. You can still have the voice cast return and sound like they did in 2004.
Animated certainly is a part of it, but you can throw a couple of contrasts to that. Look at Cars. Cars 3. Nobody's calling for Cars 3, and that's why I did okay. But going back to like Zoolander, right? Zoolander was a movie no one asked for, so that's why it didn't do very well. It was so past the time when it was relevant.
Even Blade Runner, that was critically acclaimed, but still the box office receipts weren't what the studio hoped for.
Right, and but Blade Runner is tricky also because Blade Runner, the first film, wasn't a smash hit in theaters. No. It became like
bomb.
It was a bomb, and it became a cult hit. So again, tricky ones. This, and to throw that against, look at Finding Dory. Finding Dory was years after Finding Nemo, and that did get crushed. And it was a good movie. Pixar, like Schnepp said, takes its time. And this is also a movie that everyone has been asking for. When Cars 3 was announced, when Finding Dory was announced, when all these sequels are announced, everybody said, who cares about those? We want The Incredibles 2. People want this one. Still, years and years later, 14 years later, people still want this movie, so it'll be a smash hit. They're definitely going to take their time. Brad Bird needs a hit right now, too. He needs to get back on the hit horse, if you will. But I think with this cast involved, Pixar knows how to cast films. They'll put together a story that we care about. So this is going to be one of the biggest things of the entire summer.
Perry, you agree with Kristian and Schnepp that this thing's a slam dunk no-brainer, even though we waited so long?
I do. I'm glad they took their time with something like this because the story is precious to a lot of people out there. And I like the fact that they waited and the rise of the superhero genre, how significant that's been, and how they might be able to take a cue from that and actually add some interesting insight to that genre, because really that's part of the reason why Incredibles is so fresh and fun and different, and why it still holds up so many years later. So I hope they take into account everything that's going on in the industry right now and infuse that in this a little. And I love the details that they share about these characters, because so many of the story points hint at sticking to their roots and things that they established in the first film, but almost turning it on its head a little, just with, right there out in the forefront, the idea of now Bob having to stay at home while Helen is out wearing the suit again and fighting for supers in this world right now. And then you have the idea of Sophia Bush's character, who is fascinated with Elastigirl and how we had Syndrome last time. It's like, we saw that relationship last time, and I imagine this one's going to play out in a completely different way. That could be a really interesting compare and contrast in the end.
Yeah, and the landscape of superhero movies is so different than what it was in 2004, so you have a whole lot of new avenues you can explore. Schnepp, you were not, what's the name of the Disney convention they do in the summer?
I think it's E57.
E57. Yeah. Schnepp did not get a chance to be there, but Kristian, when you and I watched that, the extended trailer, the public still hasn't seen all of the clips that we got to check out of Jack and what his new powers are. I think this movie's going to be hilarious.
I do too. I have to sneeze, so move on.
Yeah, okay. You want to There you go.
I love the fact that that's not even a joke.
Yeah,
it went
being
away.
honest.
It went away.
It passed. It was like,
You guys, you don't know, Christian's got a lot of bodily functions to take care of before 10 a.m., and sometimes it infiltrates the show. But we move on to our next story. Deadline is reporting that a new deal has been struck between Fox Studios and Ryan Reynolds' company, Maximum Effort. They're going to create new projects for Fox. Up first is a live-action film based on, wait for it, the Hasbro board game Clue. The film will be developed as a star vehicle for Reynolds, and it's going to be based on the mythology of the original board game, and they're insisting it is not a remake of the 1985 comedy, as I will say, classic. Reese and Paul Wernick are going to be penning the script right now, or at least they're in talks. You may know them from being the writers on Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2. Perri Nemiroff, I want to talk about Clue. It doesn't sound like they want it to be touted as a remake. It's going to be a remake of the movie. That's the way we're going to look at it. Ryan Reynolds, is he charming enough to fool us into thinking we need a remake for the classic movie Clue?
I'm actually going to lean towards a yes on this one. I rewatched Clue recently, and I actually do think that the better move might be to go for a straight remake versus what I'm hearing here, which feels like more of a reimagining. Because I know Clue has a cult following, and I still enjoy that movie quite a bit when I watch and rewatch it today, and I think it holds up pretty well. But think about what you could do with like an A-list cast, like Ryan Reynolds paired with other people that he works with often, how much fun that could be to lock them all in one house and have a murder mystery play out like that. That sounds so appealing to me. And then I continued to read this Deadline article, and they're like, oh, international action adventure. And I'm like, oh my God, why don't you just say you want to copy and paste what Jumanji just did and turn it into your own big box office franchise? That sounds so uninteresting to me compared to them going for a straight remake where Ryan Reynolds surrounds himself with really cool cast members and they just go for it.
Don't worry. This movie's not going to happen. Disney's going to look at it and say, no, we don't want to do this. They're making deals still while the deal hasn't happened with Disney. Disney's not going to make this movie. I don't think they're going to make this movie, especially not. I would prefer it to be the way that you want it to be, but exactly what they're doing is trying to make Jumanji, and they're right now, while they're still making deals and they're still making movies and they're still doing business as usual until the transfer is complete. I don't think Disney will make this movie. But
Fox is still going to be a leg of Disney, so why would Disney be so hesitant to make a movie that could have a huge box office?
Because people in control right now, I don't think will be in control when they shift over.
Yeah, but why wouldn't Disney say, hey, we have Ryan Reynolds, he's a huge star.
Maybe they don't want to make that
property.
movie. Maybe they don't want to make that
It
film.
sounds like they don't want to. Why wouldn't they want to make Clue?
If they want this particular way, because I don't think by doing it, Fox has a very different strategy in making film. They are one of the, minus like Deadpool and Logan, which they did, which was they took big risks there. But then there's a lot of times they try to copy what's cool, and this is what they're trying to copy what's cool. And I don't think. I think a straight up remake or an idea. I wanted Murder on the Orient Express to be Clue.
See, that's where I'll disagree with both of you, because I was going to actually say I don't want to see Clue be like done like Murder on the Orient Express. If I want to see Clue, I'll watch the original.
But it wasn't
Clue.
though. Murder on the Orient Express wasn't done that way.
No, I know. But I'm just saying it's like an updated version of with the same kind of trappings. That's all I'm kind of saying. I'm saying the idea that I saw from this, I haven't seen Jumanji yet, so I can't speak of that. I do know that they get sucked into the video game and then they're in this other world playing their avatars. This could with the writers of Deadpool, I think that's why he hired them, is to get meta with Clue. I think we can have like doors opening to other worlds, other mysteries. I think it could be a funny comedy adventure.
Make it something else then. Don't make it Clue.
But I see what by using the format of Clue, they are going to still have Mr. Green with the with the hanger or whatever. It's like I feel like,
and it's a name brand as opposed to Untitled Ryan Reynolds Murder Mystery.
Yeah, but Ryan Reynolds sells an Untitled Murder Mystery.
But Jumanji is different from Jumanji, right? They're both called Jumanji. There's the Robin Williams. This one could. I don't know if it's going to tie in because Clue is a standalone film. I think Clue, obviously we were talking about this before the show, was a box office failure. All the critics hated it. It didn't do well. Yeah. It's only years later, now people are like, it's great. But that's what happens with most films. I mean, that didn't do well. They find their niche audience. I think
Super Mario Brothers.
Right. Well, let's not talk about the tiny crocodile heads with Dennis Hopper.
I'll give you that. Disney's definitely not going to do a Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to happen.
I think it's going to happen. I think why wouldn't they do it?
I actually think it should happen.
They have a lot of time before it's set in stone and they're in full control too. true. For all we know, they could fast track an idea like this and actually get the wheels going before Disney can put a stop to it.
We still have
if they
over
even
a
want
year
to.
before Disney comes in, and I just think in that time, the movie's not going to get made, but even if it's fast-tracked or it becomes in pre-production, I can't see Disney coming in and wanting to halt the brakes of what Fox is doing. I think they want to keep that engine humming
With
and
Ryan
make
Reynolds.
it a more
Good
natural
deal.
transition,
Yeah.
especially if it's natural. If it's natural transition and you have a star like Ryan Reynolds, let him do what he wants with this, because you don't want to be Disney coming in and then immediately have one of the biggest movie stars in the world say, well, Disney came in and just completely shut down this deal that I had made with Fox. So I think the movie's going to happen, and I would be up for a Clue. I think Clue is a classic. I really do. I watched it recently too. It is fall down hilarious in my humble opinion, but I think it could be up for a reimagining, for a remake, because you could cast it very well. Ryan Reynolds certainly in the lead at that. Do we want to go as much of a comedic, spoofy route as the first one, or do you think that it's going to take a different turn, Schnepp?
I want it to be balls out funny. I want it to be meta. That's why he hired the writers of Deadpool. I think that's the way he wants to go with the two. It'd be great if all of the characters from Clue talk to the audience. I don't know if they're going to go with an interactive decision-making process, or if they're going to have multiple endings. I mean, look, we live in the digital world now. When it came out first, they had to release the 3 different movies. Like, this is the 3rd ending. This is the... Now you could just like randomly... We filmed 100 endings. We filmed... The last 30 minutes is different in 10 different versions. I mean, the things that they could do now is fantastic. So I'd like to see them take that chance.
All right. Good heated discussion about Clue. You guys want to play Clue after?
I want to play Monopoly, the movie made by Ridley Scott.
You know, I was talking to somebody about playing Jenga yesterday, and they countered my Jenga offer with Monopoly. And it's like that's a totally different evening that you're signing up for.
8 hours and
Yeah.
it ends in violence.
Right?
Jenga's like 2 minutes and it's done, and let's go
Yeah.
have a beer. Monopoly, it's like
No.
somebody's got to be the banker.
You gotta
It's
see,
like-
you gotta see my 6-year-old daughter like hustle my mother-in-law playing Monopoly. It is
Nice.
fantastic.
Does she like have all of State Street? I've got all of the
You don't
boulevards.
want, I want to buy this property. And my daughter's like, no, you don't want that one. And then she lands on it and she buys it. She like uses the cuteness to maneuver my. That's amazing.
Poor Pat. Call me next time. I want to be her real estate broker. I
Right.
got to talk Pat into some better
But
decision
that's
making.
boardwalk. I wanted that.
We move on to agree or disagree. And our first topic in this segment is centered around John Cena and a new project that he could be developing sooner rather than later, and that would be of the beloved video game character Duke Nukem. Right now, he's in negotiations to star in a big screen adaptation of the popular video game franchise. This would be at Paramount Pictures, Platinum Dunes, the company run by, you guessed it, Michael Bay. Andrew Form and Brad Fuller will produce it. The director and writer have yet to be attached. The studio is now up to enlist a scribe to develop a script for what is intended to be a starring vehicle for Cena. However, no release date has been announced. Kristian, I know that you are big on wrestlers making the transition to the big screen. You look at what The Rock has been able to do. John Cena, I think, has that kind of chops to be an action star, to be a movie star. Duke Nukem, I do not think this is the right project for him to launch into the action star realm. Do you agree or disagree
Well,
with that?
he's been doing the action star thing for a while. Just nothing has really popped yet. He's done
Not a big franchise. I mean,
Yeah,
he's
he's
like
done the wall. He did
yeah.
the whatever the there's
Marine.
the Marine.
Yeah.
He's done tons of stuff, and then he's really popped in comedy. Whether it's Sisters or Trainwreck. That's where he's shining. Although he was horrendous in Daddy's Home too. Oh my! I mean, everybody was horrendous in that movie, but he was so bad in that movie. And I like John Cena.
I can't pin Daddy's Home 2
I
on
can't-
John
no,
Cena.
no.
When he shows. I think he is going to be funny
And-
in this Blockers movie that's
Yes,
coming out.
he looks good in that film. But as far as Duke Nukem, I don't know. I mean, who's directing this thing?
They don't have
don't have a director?
as of yet. They don't have a lot. They know that they
Yeah.
want to get John Cena. And you look at The Rock's career, right, with movies like Walking Tall and The Rundown. Those were not big name properties, but The Rock started to make a transition into being in huge franchises,
Yes,
and
but
he
The
became
Rundown-
known as franchise Viagra. So is Duke Nukem the right property to get him to the next level?
Well, I'll use The Rundown as an example. The Rundown had Peter Berg behind it. And
Mm-hmm.
Peter Berg is a fantastic director who I'm sure The Rock is a student of the game, any game that he plays. I'm sure he learned a lot from Peter Berg in that movie, and that helped him transition into being the star that he is.
And it had Stifler in it, too.
It did. I want to see what happens with the director. Like I can't answer this question until I find out who the director is, because if it's a director who can really work with Cena and put him in the forefront, and this is a star vehicle, great. But if it's someone who's just there for the check and doesn't really know, I'll tell you who I wouldn't mind seeing direct this. Who directed the latest Maze Runner?
Oh my God, Wes Ball.
Now, did he do the other ones?
Yeah, he did all of them.
I'll tell you, he's all three of them. Wow, because I didn't like
I'm so happy you brought him up.
Well, he shoots action. The third movie, the second one I didn't like at all. I thought the second one was really bad. The third movie, some of the action is great. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, so maybe the Death Cure guy gets to direct John Cena and Duke Nukem. I just think whoever the director is, you could get Steven Spielberg, you could resurrect Stanley Kubrick. I don't care about seeing a Duke Nukem movie. I just don't think that it's going to have a whole lot of box office appeal. How do you feel about that?
I would agree with you, but I also am kind of Christian's mindset right now, where it's hard to assess the potential of a project like this until we know some of the other creative entities behind it, because the second you attach a particular director, that could completely change what I'm picturing just in terms of style and tone for this. Right. And really the idea of, it's like initially when I put what I know of Duke Nukem with John Cena, I picture some really thinly developed big action blockbuster type thing, and I've seen him in enough things that I think he has potential and I want to see him become a star. When I think of him in that package that I just described, that doesn't sound like a good launching point for a big action star career. Right. I want something with a little more nuance and flavor and something that feels like it could be strictly his. And I think the idea of him jumping in so early on, where he's developing this project from the very beginning, is a sign that he wants to make it something that suits him, which could be a good thing. But until we know who's not even just directing it, who's writing this thing, the fact that they don't even have a writer on this is making me think, hold on, don't get ahead of yourself. This thing might never even happen.
It's not a WWE film, is it?
No, I don't think WWE is producing it, but it's because it's Michael Bay's company. I think that they might be producing all this. So which like Michael Bay, his movies make money. So I'm not going to say his movies don't make money, or that John Cena might even be a better comedic talent to put in there than some of the other people that Michael Bay has used in Transformers movies. Now, John Cena looks like Duke Nukem, okay? Yeah. He could play Duke Nukem fine. I don't see Duke Nukem having the broad appeal that even he did at his heyday as a video game star, because the most recent Duke Nukem video game, according to our millennial on-site copster, said that it was a mess. It's not a good movie, and I don't think the franchise has legs like some other video game properties would.
Well, I'll ask Copster later, because I didn't play the new version of Duke Nukem. I've played an older version where he has a lot of catchphrases. He's got a lot of...
Which is perfect.
Duke Nukem is... It's perfect for John Cena, and he needs his Taika Waititi. He needs a comedy director who can direct action. They should actually call Taika Waititi and give him, just dump that a truckload of money into it. Like, he needs 5 new homes, pay him whatever he needs, get Taika Waititi to direct this. That's what I'm talking about. I want to see an action comedy. I want to see the return of an action comedy series. Duke Nukem done serious would be worse than Doom. Okay, it's like look, and The Rock couldn't save Doom either. So it's like, there's been so many trashy, horrible video game adaptations. This is staring you in the face. It has to be a comedy. John Cena shines when it's comedic roles. He's really naturally funny. So that's the route I'd go, is get a couple of really good comedy writers and get an incredible comedy director, not a bad comedy director, a top A-list comedy director, and make that movie.
It's starting to win me over a little bit. Perry, do you agree that it should be a comedy style director like a Taika Waititi over your boy Wes Ball?
So clearly I was very excited when Kristian brought up Wes Ball, but with him in particular, I think you were spot on. He is an exceptional director, and if you've kind of shied away from the Maze Runner movies because of the whole YA, young adult thing, give those a shot and just look at it from his perspective, because he is so freaking talented. I want to see what he can do outside of the confines of a pre-existing franchise, series, source material, anything like that. When you said Taika Waititi, and I pictured Taika Waititi working with John Cena in this kind of realm, if that's how this came together, I would be sold.
I'd like that too. I think Taika Waititi is going to be doing bigger things than Duke Nukem right now after Thor. I just think that's not going to be after Thor Ragnarok. I just can't imagine him going over to war. And again, if Michael Bay is producing, Michael Bay is usually he likes to hire people underneath him that he can to do it this way, do it that way.
Well, that's why most Platinum Dunes movies suck. I mean, maybe they might want to flip it a little bit, change the script up so they can have a good movie.
Well, look at the movies that he's produced, and even not that they were bad directors, but they're usually people who are either up and coming, just starting, and they have to kind of, a lot of the movies that even he's not directing, they look like his movies because of the way that he produces. So I don't think Taika would be a guy. I don't disagree with you that if he did it, that elevates the project. I just don't ever see that happen.
Right, he's a one of a kind. I'm using his name
you're right.
Loosely.
Someone like that.
If they could secure someone of that caliber, I mean, Platinum Dunes back up that platinum money. You know, it's like, but if they can't, they got to look for someone like
Platinum
that.
Dunes is at Paramount, and Paramount is so desperate for a franchise right now, a hit franchise that could bring them back to the type of money Transformers was making them. So
I was going to say, I mean, Michael Bay said he's now retired officially from doing Transformers movies. I wonder if he has another franchise in mind he wants to jump on, and if this could be it. Well, Duke Nukem still needs a director. The next movie we're talking about, we think is a movie, and if it is a movie, then it probably needs a director at some point, but we have no idea if it is a film or if it's a Super Bowl ad. What the hell is going on with the mystery that is Dundee? Last week, the internet was stunned to learn about a new movie entitled Dundee, The Son of a Legend Returns Home, when a trailer was revealed starring Danny McBride as Crocodile Dundee's son. Now a new trailer has appeared on the updated official website introducing Chris Hemsworth as Wally Jr., a local Outback expert who joins McBride's Brian on the search for his missing father. Paul Hogan is also returning. However, no release date has been revealed, but according to the poster, it's coming soon, mate. Kristian, is this a movie or is this a Super Bowl stunt?
I think it's both. I think it is a Super Bowl stunt to promote the movie. If you look at, it wasn't on IMDb originally. I believe it is now. Paul Hogan's company is doing it. And if you look at the story of Crocodile Dundee, which I totally forgot that the first one was nominated for an Oscar as far as screenplay.
Because the second one made you forget it.
100%. But I think that if you look at the character, you know, he had a son, or he lived in New York, and so his son would be American. So that makes sense. I'm so past Danny McBride's old persona. Like, I like Danny McBride a lot. I know that you and I differ on Alien Covenant, but I think we both can agree that he was great in that movie. Maybe not. I loved him in that movie. I thought he was so good.
I love Danny McBride. I'd rather see him in Eastbound and Down.
But that's the thing, is that so he had that. He has the Vice Principals. He's got these other shows that he's every time he does comedies, it's the same thing over and over again. But he's starting to do other things with producing and with Halloween. That he's doing. He's producing. He's a very talented dude, and I don't want to see him just kind of rely on the same trick. I feel like when he's swinging around at Losers, I just feel like I've seen that a billion times with every character he's ever played. If that's a movie, I just don't think I'm going to care about it at all, because I've just seen him. I like Danny McBride so much. I want to see him do more. I think he could be a great dramatic
Did you
actor.
laugh or you didn't laugh when he did that?
No.
See, I busted out laughing. I love Danny McBride. I wish they'd make vice presidents. I was pitching that last week. But vice principals, if you haven't seen those 2 seasons, I mean, you will not stop laughing.
The same character?
No, it's a derivation of the character that he started with Fistfoot Way. I mean, he plays a derivation of someone who's like him, but like extruded. So I think this is just another extrusion of Danny McBride. He cannot do any wrong so far in anything I've seen him in. And I agree. I also liked Alien Covenant. I thought he was great in that. But seeing him playing Crocodile Dundee's, I mean, this is so off that to me, I can't even think of it as a movie. It feels, everything I saw looks like a Chiat Day commercial. I've seen too many commercials in my life to think that this was shot as a movie. This just feels like, all right, get the camera here. Here's the bus. Come. It's just like your two placement. It's like so sloppily directed, but also like an art director directed it, where it's like, it just feels shiny. Where's the Bud Light like foam coming? That's what I'm expecting, is them to crack beers at the end.
Do you think they're testing the waters, that if it get a nice positive response that they would make a movie?
I would love to see that, because look, everyone, and me, myself included, was like, oh my God, if this was a movie coming out next week, I would go see it. I'd be seeing it opening day. So I mean, if they're testing the waters, test away.
Yeah, that might be a great point, Perri, is that maybe it's not either a Super Bowl stunt or a movie that's in production. Maybe it is testing the waters. Do you agree with Kristian's point?
That sounds like an extremely elaborate, pricey way to test the waters on an idea like that, especially when you could just, you know, instantly drop a rumor to any outlet there. They report it, and then all of a sudden you get instant feedback. Why would you go to this extent? I have read everything on this whole story just because I am fascinated by it. When it first dropped and I found that website, started scrolling through that website, I'm like, oh, like maybe this is the real deal. I mean, look at this thing. Someone clearly spent a lot of time building that site, and maybe some money too. Where it threw me off is I read a report, I think it was from AV Club, and they did a little research, and apparently Screen Australia has no idea that this movie even exists. And if you scroll down on their website, they have a little Screen Australia logo there. So that's a pretty significant disconnect. And of all the theories of what this could be, a lot of people are pointing at the Super Bowl. I think it might be that, and I think it might be specifically a tourism ad.
So maybe it's a tourism ad because, look, if it is a Super Bowl ad, we enjoy the Super Bowl ads because they entertain us for 30 seconds, but they're there to sell something. They're there to sell a soap or soda or Doritos. Or GoDaddy,
I don't think
because GoDaddy spends a lot of money on Super Bowl ads every year. They had a Pop Your Own with Danica Patrick, amongst other celebrities, in their ads, and they were famous for a crazy Super Bowl stunt. If Perri's saying that the website is elaborate and it's this great-looking site and it's really selling you on the movie, maybe it's because this ad campaign is all designed to sell you on GoDaddy building your website.
See, GoDaddy is way more likely than tourism, because if it was tourism, he wouldn't start it off calling people losers and stuff, and it's just they're very careful about that kind of thing. But I think as far as a website or GoDaddy, they pay a lot of money.
You could just see Paul Hogan open a bag of Doritos, and then we get it. But I don't totally disagree with your point that it could be, hey, you know what? Let's just make this as a lark with GoDaddy's money or whoever's money it is. And then if people are clamoring for this movie, we see how movies sometimes get made today.
Right.
You see that movies get made because somebody had an idea with 140 characters on Twitter, and now that's going to be a real movie. So this could be a movie coming soon. I just don't think it is right now.
So let's say this whole thing was originally made to sell some sort of product or a tourism ad, whatever you want to say. In order for them to really stick the landing and actually make people go, just be hysterical at the ending and actually want to buy into whatever product they're selling, they just have to come up with the most clever twist during that Super Bowl ad so it doesn't feel like you've been jerked around for 2 weeks. Right. If that does happen, and if people are like, holy shit, I love these guys as these characters, I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't the intention at the beginning, but then it took off in the end, and all of a sudden we have an adaptation of a Super Bowl campaign.
It totally could. Kristian, I got one question specifically for you. What movie has a better chance of actually hitting theaters? A new Dundee movie or Ryan Reynolds starring in Clue?
Man, that's a tough one, actually. I'd say
I'm not going to hold you to your
Oh,
previous. Okay,
Damn, he is sticking to that, man.
Kristian brought up the concept of a hit horse earlier. I'm not sure which horse you're on right now, but I think that Clue is a better chance. But Dundee, we could see it in theaters maybe even sooner than Clue. Well, a movie that we never thought we would see in theaters, we didn't know this kind of thing could happen, is that a sequel is being penned currently to RoboCop, the 1987 version. And I know what you're thinking. Wait, RoboCop already had a sequel called RoboCop 2, and there was like a 9-year-old drug dealer in it, and it was like, no, we're getting rid of RoboCop 2 and RoboCop 3. The original writer of RoboCop has said that they're working on a new script for a sequel. Ed Neumeyer, he co-wrote the original film, said he's working on a continuation of the first film for MGM Pictures. He was very short on details. He did tease the movie, saying that there's a bunch of other RoboCop movies, and there was recently a remake, and I would say this would be kind of going back to the old RoboCop we all love and starting there and going forward. So it's a continuation, really, of the first movie in my mind. So it's a little bit more of the old school thing. Schnepp, I'm going right to you on this. Do you agree that we have an appetite for RoboCop 2, a follow-up to the original 1987?
I will agree that I think RoboCop, the original, is one of the greatest science fiction action films ever made. I would see this if they made it. Look, I mean, they've done a RoboCop TV series, so why not?
Okay. Schnepp says yes. Kristian?
I agree. I think that if you do it, but the thing is, whoever directs this thing or whoever makes it, don't make it for 120, 150, $200 million. Make it for like $60 million. Make it look like the old school. And if you get Peter Weller back, get him back.
Right.
You know, it's like that would be. I mean, how many years later, and he's still, maybe he's breaking down, and it's been years later, and Detroit is still kind of cleaned up, but there's new. I don't want to see what they did with 2 and 3 and all that stuff.
It's a really flattering casting breakdown. Hey, we're looking for a broken down old robot.
But that's again with the technology that we today. When you look from the time period that it was made, I know that I forget what year it took place when the movie came out in 87, but I can't remember what year it was supposed to take place. You now fast forward 20, 30 years later, and RoboCop he's like an old clunker compared to all these other things that are out there. I think that you could do something pretty fun with it. That movie was raw when it came out. I mean, they got to make it a rated R film, and they have to pull no punches. They don't over CGI it, and make sure Ed 209's in. And I'm
Get Alvarez to direct it.
Yes.
Like I would love to see them shoot it in Detroit. I mean, there's already like certain areas of Detroit they could just be like, look, we're going to demo these 6 buildings and rebuild Detroit as part of our budget, and they could still do it for $30 million.
Right.
I think I would love to see that. The more we talk about it, the more I'm like, look, to take a direct response approach to, you know, here's Superman, here's Superman Returns. I mean, that didn't work, but like that same kind of thing where you're like just skipping all these other films and going right from the original.
The template has been set before. I mean, and they're actually, we brought up the Halloween remake / sequel earlier. That's going to be a direct sequel to Halloween, but it's going to take place 40 years after Halloween because Jamie Lee Curtis's character is returning. So Perri, with some sort of a precedent set, is there going to be an appetite for RoboCop 2? Is this movie going to make money if we do it on a budget?
I'm leaning towards a no on that, and that's obviously from this being something that he's working on right now. This is so far off from being a reality, it almost doesn't feel fair to say that there's not going to be an appetite. I highly disagree with that, actually. I would bet on Clue well before I would bet on this, but I think one of the problems with this, and you brought up Halloween, Michael Myers is an iconic character that whether you've seen the original Halloween or not, odds are you could show a really young moviegoer a picture of Michael Myers and they'll know and they'll be interested to see a new movie with him.
They know who RoboCop is?
I think it's less with RoboCop, and I also think they kind of played that game already with the 2014 movie, and it didn't do very well, and it wasn't very good. So I feel like that ship has kind of sailed.
See, I don't agree with that.
2014 RoboCop was a remake, and it didn't take any of the good parts of the original RoboCop.
It was PG-13.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that there's not more good to explore. And if they do make another RoboCop movie, that is the version I do want to see. But I do feel like there's folks out there who paid their hard-earned money to go see that RoboCop movie. They are really disappointed in it. So when they hear that there's another RoboCop movie coming out, they're not going to be as interested anymore.
Yeah, but I think that's a bigger problem in general. Is that I think this is philosophy that I've always kind of when I was working at Warner Brothers. I think a lot of times that people look at past things and go, "Well, that one didn't do so well, so we shouldn't make any more of those because they won't do well." And I'm always under the philosophy: you do a movie well with a good director, a good writer, and a good cast, and you get people excited about it, and word of mouth happens, people will see it. It doesn't matter how many times. You could do the same movie over 1 billion times and it all stinks, and then you do it for 1,000,000,001 and it is the best version of that. People will catch on to it. It's just a matter. Now that's the magic trick, though. How do you do that? And it's not easy to do. But if you get RoboCop back to that magic of, and because RoboCop 2 couldn't do it, 3 couldn't do it. So if you can get the magic of 1 back,
but is this the right way to get the magic of 1 back? I think is the bigger question. Like should you be pinning your hopes on a sequel to the 1987 RoboCop, or should you just try to remake it again the right way?
No, I think that because that I think plays more into Perri's point and Schnepp's that if you. The problem with the new RoboCop, it was PG-13. It was a remake. It was very different from took a lot of the things that were cool and got rid of them. But if you made it a sequel now and kind of retconned a lot of the other things the same way that Halloween is, or what Ridley Scott apparently was going to do with Alien, or whoever was going to do Blomkamp,
right?
That's the way that you continue the story for people again. But if you put too much money into it, very similar to the horror movies we talk about all the time. There's all these returns on, was it Insidious or whatever the movies are, that they make so much money because they cost nothing to make. So even if they make an okay amount, they're making a huge profit. You put a lot of money, like RoboCop, that remake probably dumped in like $100 to $150 million into it. What a waste of money. Make a movie. It's the new Terminator. You and I have talked about it many times.
So excited about that.
Go back to basics.
And they're retconning. They're going,
man.
Yeah,
make it look like 1984's Terminator. You don't have to make it because it's a big franchise now. You don't have to make it $200 million. You can make it $60 million. Or 80 million and go.
I'd buy that for $2. That's the sequel.
That 2014 RoboCop movie has a reported production budget of $100 million.
Too much.
Too much.
It made $242 million worldwide.
Right.
I'd say 40 million tops with this one. I would make it green like that. Go shoot it in Detroit if I was running a studio.
And make it look like it was made in 1987.
Yes.
Seems like some of us are actually excited for a RoboCop sequel.
Only if it's done this way that we're talking about.
If it's done the way that Kristian and Schnepp wanted, I understand Perri's hesitations, but I will say this with all due respect, Mr. Neumeier, your move creep. We are going to save some time for your Twitter questions. We're going to skip mailbag and go right to Twitter. You can tweet us anytime at Collider Video. Use the hashtag Collider Movie Talk to make it easy to find. But I also want to remind you guys that we have a very special screening of Star Wars The Last Jedi in IMAX that we're going to be sponsoring at Collider.com. It's going to be January 31st at 7 p.m. in Los Angeles. Not only is it an IMAX screening of The Last Jedi, there's also going to be a Q&A with Rian Johnson. If you want to see it, email the Collider mailbox at gmail.com with the subject line, I want to see Star Wars The Last Jedi with Rian Johnson, ! Use your name, and if you'd like to bring a guest, they'll be accepting emails until Sunday, January 28th, and they're going to contact the people that won passes with specific info about the screening the next day. So keep in mind, if you want to enter to get to that screening, make sure you guys email the Collider mailbox at gmail.com and your subject line, I want to see Star Wars The Last Jedi with Rian Johnson.
Hey, Mark, sorry, is this the same kind of screening place that they usually do these IMAX screenings?
It's going to be an IMAX screening. They're going to email, if you were a winner of the contest, then you would go get an email the next day, and they tell you exactly where it was, but it is going to be in the Los Angeles area. Speaking of Jon Schnepp and speaking of heroes of all kind, Heroes is back live today. What do we got on tap?
Well, we're going to talk a little bit about Infinity Wars, like the Thanos, 100 days, less than 100 days to go. A lot of news has been popping off in the Marvel sector, so we're going to be covering that. We're going to talk a little bit about the amazing new series called Black Lightning. We're going to cover a lot of different bells and whistles, so tune in later this afternoon.
Very cool. Check out Collider Heroes. Subscribe right here to Collider Video for all of the latest vids that we have popping up each and every day, not the least of which is going to be this Friday, the Schmodown Awards. Movie Trivia Schmodown had an epic 4th season, and now we're giving out the awards. This is our version of the Oscars or the Golden Globes. We have the best and the worst of 2017 will be awarded. Kristian, what are you excited about?
Oh, all of it. There's going to be a lot of craziness that's going to happen for sure. Big personality is going to be there. Jon Schnepp will be presenting an award. Perri Nemiroff is going to be doing all the pre and post interviews, which I'm excited about, and she's get ready for Dagnino. So make sure you check it out because it's going to be a lot of craziness that will ensue.
And I get to host it, so looks like I have to prep a monologue. And again, I warned him about this earlier this week. Josh McCouga, please help me pick out a suit. We're going to move on to live Twitter questions. Terry McGinnis has been tweeting us this question for a long time, so I did want to get it out there on the table today. You can only pick one. Over the years, is Mark Hamill better at playing Luke Skywalker or doing the voice of the Joker? My answer is a no-brainer. He's great at doing the Joker, and I really appreciate Mark Hamill taking the time out of his busy schedule to do his Joker impression as an intro to the Schmoes Know Live show. That was maybe the coolest thing that's ever happened to me in my life. But Mark Hamill is my Luke Skywalker. He is the Luke Skywalker. He's the greatest here in the galaxy. To this plucky young gent from Virginia. Kristian, how do you feel?
I actually think that he's better at Joker. I'll tell you why, because I think he is a DC fan. Like, he is a comics fan. It was like one of his dream jobs to be able to be the Joker, and you can tell when he does it how invested he is. Not that he's not invested when he's playing Luke Skywalker, of course he is, but we all know about the reports and things that he had about how he disagreed with certain choices. But as a pro, I thought it was the best acting he had ever done. Whatever you want to think about how Luke was portrayed in The Last Jedi, Mark Hamill was the best he has ever been live.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if that factored into your decision making.
No, he was great.
If that it maybe improved the chances as Luke Skywalker.
He was great, and I think that, and I happen to like the direction of what they did with him. But I understand, obviously, there's a lot of people who didn't. But I just think, as far as an investment goes, I think he's more invested when he plays the Joker because he loves DC so much. Okay,
we got one vote for Joker. A lot of people saying Joker, and then obviously Luke Skywalker has a nice contingent in the chat room as well. Perri, which way are you going?
Obviously, he's great at both, but I think I have a bias considering how limited my exposure was to his voice work as the Joker compared to growing up my entire life with him as Luke Skywalker, and then me agreeing with Kristian, thinking what he brought to that character in Last Jedi and his performance in that movie was through the roof. I have to go Luke Skywalker.
Schnepp, you hear people say all the time that maybe the best Joker is Heath Ledger, but very competitive with that. They're not talking about Cesar Romero or Jack Nicholson. They're talking about Mark Hamill.
Yeah, well, Mark Hamill is a big comic book fan. I got a chance to see Man of Steel with him. I've directed him in like over 60 episodes of Metalocalypse. The man is super talented. And the thing I froze up when I first met him because I couldn't think right. I was like, I'm talking to Luke Skywalker. I don't remember what he was telling me for like the first 20 minutes. And then as I got to know him, my respect for him grew for the Joker. And that's how I broke the ice. Can't talk to him about Luke Skywalker. Hey, what about that Joker? Still felt weird about it, but he's so talented in all the different voiceover work that he does, especially branding the Joker. Look, there's been so many different Jokers. He's the Joker. And so I feel like voiceover-wise, that trumps his role as Luke Skywalker, which I love his role as Luke Skywalker since I saw him as a little kid as Luke Skywalker to the most recent Last Jedi. I agree with you. It's his best performance as Luke. But to me, the Joker.
A lot of people weighing in on both sides. And Dwayne Zappian in the chat room says that Corvette's summer was the best that Mark Hamill's ever been. Thanks for your participation. We have one more Twitter question, then we'll call it a day. This one comes from Nathan Baston, and it's an Oscars question. Do the Oscars give too much weight to subject matter? Should making movies to tackle social, cultural issues automatically give films consideration for Best Picture, or should the focus be on the acting, script, and direction, etc., regardless of what the subject matter is? Perri, how do you lean on this question?
It's hard to isolate it one way or the other. I can tell you that when I assess movies, I don't give any extra points to a movie that will have a cultural impact, but if it does, and it does make a strong impression on me by saying something and making me rethink something in my life, odds are that movie is going to stick with me and impact me more so than some of the other ones I've seen. So I can see why that would pave the way towards being on, let's say, top 10 lists or getting awards recognition, but I don't think... I mean, I can't really speak for them because I'm not a member of the Academy, but my personal experience is I don't put them on a pedestal because they do that. But again, Academy members are human beings, and I can't speak to how they are influenced by that over, let's say, a fun blockbuster movie.
Yeah, I mean, fun blockbusters are great, and I get emotionally moved by them all the time. But, Kristian, if you have a movie that tackles an important social or cultural story, then it could have a better way to get into your heart and into your soul. You look at something like La La Land versus Moonlight. I thought La La Land was tremendously done, but Moonlight had such an emotional impact. Maybe that's what put it over the edge.
I agree. I think 100%. I think one of the things with... I happen to find myself just getting more excited now towards the end of September and up until December, because that's honestly where the better quality stories and movies come from. But let's not fool ourselves when it comes to all these award shows. They're political statements also. I mean, they absolutely nominate things that should be nominated, but they're political statements. People want, whether it's in the nominations sometimes, whether it's in the actual speeches that they give, it is a platform for people to get their voice out in places that they, and again, it's not even necessarily with words, it's with statements that they might make. There's certain things that you and I talked about off air that I think certain times nominations, even when people are nominated when they deserve it, I think sometimes it's done because it needs to be done, and it should be done. There's a lot of different things that come, because I also think movies like Logan and Wonder Woman will get the shoe to the side, because it's like, because regardless of the way we all talk about it and the way you guys listen to it, because what you said as far as the way you look at things objectively, you're not one of like what they do, because you would nominate Logan, or you would potentially nominate.
Yeah.
No, but you know what I mean. You nominate it's not, there's no way. They're not even, and I know it's a different conversation with you and I when it comes to like Andy Serkis, maybe if it's a certain, different category, but they're so far away from all of that. Right. It's still there is an elitist thing to it. There's an elitist type of view, because they don't want to be the person who voted for the comic book movie or the superhero movie or the Star Wars movie. Those movies won't get nominated. It's just not going to happen. And if it does, it's going to be so rare. Oh my God, can you believe this? And sometimes they should be. Look at Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill should have been considered. He should have been considered. No one had him on the list. No one had him even in a conversation, because it's a Star Wars movie.
Yeah, and Mark Riley brought something to my attention yesterday, because there was a movie that came out that I thought was a shoo-in for Best Actor, maybe even giving out the statue, and then I forgot about it because it didn't have enough money to put up for the campaign, and that was Lucky with Harry Dean Stanton. It's like, I totally forgot about that movie because I'm just a human being, and I'm driving down Sunset, and I see all these billboards for 3 Billboards and for Shape of Water and all these movies that I thought were legitimately great, and then you forget about a movie like Lucky and whether that should have been considered. Schnepp, I think sometimes in relation to this question is that it's not just that it's social or cultural issues, it's that they're put at the forefront of the movie, because I could argue that there is no series of movies that is more socially or culturally aware than the X-Men movies. You look at the war between mutants and humans and how that is very relatable to what goes on in our society now, very socioeconomic, race, ethnicity, all those kind of things. But if it's put right in front of your face, maybe that's easier for voters.
Well, I mean, look, I mean, you mentioned a film. I'll mention Good Time. Like, that film got nothing.
Right.
I think the Safdie brothers should have been nominated as best directors. I think Robert Pattinson should have gotten a nomination as best actor. I think that movie's phenomenal work of this past year. No awards, nothing, no recognition. Why? Because probably screeners weren't sent out. And that's like I've said this multiple times, the Oscars is just one of many awards ceremonies. It's got a lot more impetus and a lot more reality perhaps than the Golden Globes and all the ones in between. So look, is that the most important? I've seen movies like the X-Men 2 like 5-6 times. I've seen those kinds of films more times than I'll see an Oscar winner, or I'll see that once. It's a one and done sometimes with me, where you're like, oh, I get that story. I don't need to see it 100 times. As action adventures or fun, repeatable films that put you in the world of the escapist filmmaking, that's kind of like, you know, there's a barrier there, and I don't mind that the Oscars have that barrier. To me, it's like, it doesn't bum me out that all the superhero movies didn't get nominated. I'm not hurt at all. I feel like those films stand on their own. They're great. We love them. I don't need, you know, those people to be awarded some little golden dude for me to validate why I like or dislike a film. So to me, sometimes these award things, I get really pissy about them anyway because I don't care. But the bigger thing is, you've already covered it, Kristian. What they, you know, like you said, September, October, November, the movies that are more weighty, that are more, you know, relevant as far as biopics and things that happen, that are more, you know, based on the human intellect. Those are the films that come out, and those are the ones that are vying for those Oscars. Those are the screeners that go out. Those are the ones like, hey, we did this historical drama, or we did this one movie about this person, as opposed to some fantasy or an action adventure or a science fiction film.
Well, look at someone like Jodie Foster, who's clearly a member of the Academy. You think she's nominating Logan? You know, you think she's going to talk about Logan? You know, and then again, there are circles and stuff that talk about it too. It's just not going to happen. It's unfortunate, but I mean, this is the thing that I will say about the Critics' Choice Awards that I really enjoyed, was that these separate categories with Best Action Movie and they should do that for the Oscars.
I've been thinking about that a lot, with also maybe like a Best Breakthrough Performance type of award, because I was complaining the other day about how the Florida Project was just almost completely
ignored,
wiped out of the Oscars. And if you had a breakthrough category, then Brooklyn Prince could have gotten a little
little girl
recognition.
should have been nominated.
You know what?
Fantastic.
Let's, instead of having the Academy president, who no one cares about, when to come out and give a 45-minute
I think
speech.
they're riveting.
Well, yeah, when they come out there and it's like watching a bottle of NyQuil. And
I find them delightful.
Instead of doing that, let's put another category there for something great, like a best franchise film, or best something like for everyone who watches. So people who do a lot, because how many times are people watching out there say, "What the hell is that movie?" The majority of, like, we all know, because whether it's screeners or everything too, there are a lot of people like, "What the hell is the Florida Project? What the hell is this?" You know. And so how about a category for everyone instead of, "And today we're going to do this, and for 45 years
I've chugged the NyQuil."
Yeah, it's like, get out of here. We don't get, you know, it's like, give your speech at the party. Like, no one else cares. You just want to get on camera for the first 5 seconds. The president of whoever.
Well, we'll see how hard the Academy or the president of Motion Picture Sciences
I'm still excited for the Oscars.
This year. Whatever happens at this year's Oscars, just know in 2 years at the Oscars, The Clue starring Ryan Reynolds is going to be nominated for Best Picture. That does it for Collider Movie Talk.
This year we like to nominate
today.
Clue for...
Thank you guys for tuning in.
The 7 multiple endings will be available on digital.
For Kristian Harloff, Jon Schnepp, and Perri Nemiroff, I am merely Mark Ellis. See you guys at the Ice House Comedy Club this Friday and Saturday. Have a good one. Hey everybody, Mark Ellis here. Thanks for watching this episode of Collider Movie Talk. You want to watch more? Then click up here, or you can click right here for more great content from Collider. And if you haven't subscribed to Collider Video, do so right now and share this vid with your friends. Thanks for watching.